Hello friends and everyone, you're welcome back to Netcode-Hub channel. In this video, we're going to talk about event-driven architecture. Event-driven architecture is whereby services listen to an event and perform a corresponding task. Think of it as a food delivery app. You know, when a user makes an order, places an order, there are a lot of things that can happen, isn't it? Maybe if an order is placed, you can notify the user by email. You can notify the delivery person to prepare the item and send it, and a whole lot. Now, within this, if you decide to call all these functions, all these tasks within a single API call, the system can be messy. So in this case, you can work with event-driven architecture. That is where each service listens to an event. As soon as the event is published, then it takes it up and it can start processing it. So email service will take it up and now process it. A delivery notification will take it up and process it, and so forth. I and my friend Joe are working on a demo e-commerce project, which is actually a microservices. We have two services in it, product API, or that's a product service, and we have the order service. Now, this is what you want to do. In case a client make a request of an order from the order API, we want to notify the product API and I retrieve the product details and now send a mail to the user. In this case, we want to do this through event-driven with the help of using MassTransit and RabbitMQ. So let's have a look on how we can achieve this. So when you have a look with the product, you see that's the clean architecture that I use. And in here, I have my controller also created over here, which is for product and category. And now when you go to the order, I have also this implemented using clean architecture. I have all the stuff here registered. And then in my controller, I also have this other controllers you can see from here. The client can just go in there and now make an order here. And now to save to the database. Now both services are connected to a single database, which is the NetSQL server. All right, so maybe I'm going to run this so we can test it out and then look at what we're going to be doing next. So when you look at the screen, you can see that I have these two windows open. Now, the first one here, it is my order API or order service. Then I have my product service also available. Now I can just go in and I'll get our product. So let me just test one for you to see that it's actually working. Yeah, so I have all these products that I have in my system. Now, if I go to order, let's see, I can also go in there and I'll make an order. But now, if I click on get orders, try this out. Now, send this. I'm not sure we have order here. Let's wait and see. Okay, so we have these orders made, and I can still go in and I'll make an order. But the fact is, we see from here that the orders that we don't have product name. When a client make an order, you want to maybe send an email. Now, the email that you want to send, we want to provide the product name, maybe the product quantity and the product price. Now, all these data can be driven from the product API because order handles only making an order. So how do we do it? That is when a user places an order, we push or we publish this event to the RabbitMQ, that's an event source, and that is where we're going to subscribe our product API to. As soon as an order is placed or event is sent, then this order or this product will take the event, process it, and return a product detail. So we're going to provide product ID, whereby the product API is going to consume it and now process it, get a product detail, and also push it back for us to consume it. And we can get the product details anytime that you want to send an email to the user, like this is the summary of the product that you have ordered. Okay, so now that we are good here, let's see how to work with it. We're going to be using a RabbitMQ and drive it with a MassTransit because it's very easy if you're using MassTransit to interact with the RabbitMQ. So let's see how we can do it. But the first thing that we're going to be doing here is we need to install the package. So we're going to be installing these two packages for product API and also the other API. So let's do that. So now that we have these two packages installed on each of the projects, we're going to create a shared library, which will be shared by both the other API or the other service and the product service. Now, let's add that. So as you can see from here, we having our library added, and where actually is it? So we added that in the other API. So that is our shared library. Now this shared library, we're going to be adding class. Now I'm going to have two classes. It could be records. Now we need these for our request and also for our response. You know, when publishing, we need to have a request, and when we are providing answer to the question, that is a response, right? So let's have these two classes created. So when you look at what we have in here, we see we are creating a request and a response. The request takes in an ID. This is what the other service is going to publish it as an event. Now, when it gets to the RabbitMQ, it's going to lie there, and we're going to have the product API as a subscriber or as a consumer, which is going to consume this and going to process that, get the product details, and return the product ID, the product name, quantity, price, and in case you have other property that you want to attach it, which will be needful in your other API, you can go and add that. So let's stick to this. Now that we have, let's go and register our MassTransit in the program.cs file. Now, when you have take a close look, you see that since I am working with clean architecture, I am doing that in the application layer. So you can see that from here, we have been able to register the service for our RabbitMQ using this MassTransit service. Okay, now we are referring to a service that we're going to create for local host because we're going to run that locally. So we need to specify that. We have in our credentials, these are the default one. We have get for both username and password. Good. Now that we have this also configured, now remember that we're doing this in the other API. Now this is going to be a publisher. So let's go and publish it. As soon as a client makes an order, we want to push this event for a response. So let's go to the same application layer here, and we're going to create maybe a folder as a consumer or whatever as a publisher. Well, we have a service also created already. So I think we can orchestrate this in the service. Actually, from here, an order is being placed over here. Now we mapping it. After that, you want to create it, and then we save changes. So after we think that everything is put in place, we want to now publish this. So how do you publish it? We can use an interface iPublisher endpoint to do that. And that is all that we need to do here. Now, when you have a look, you can see that we having an order. Now, this order has a product ID as a parameter. So that is this. It has this, I think, product ID as a property rather. Now, this is this property that it has. That is the product name. We want to assign it to this product request, and then we're going to publish it. So just a line, we can publish this to this event to the source. Okay. Now that we have this published, how are we going to handle the next one? We need to run our RabbitMQ. But before we can do it, we need to make sure we have our Docker installed and also launched, and our engine has started. So make sure you install that. If you're not having Docker, just go and type in download Docker for Windows or any operating system that you have, and I'll make sure you run that. So let's wait. Mine is still running. Let's wait for this to get run. Now, the next thing we're going to be doing here is we need to create a Docker Compose file. That is where we're going to specify our setup for this RabbitMQ. Okay, so let's go and do that, and we can click on presentation and then create this YAML file. So that is what we need here in order for our RabbitMQs to run. We have our service specified, and currently we have only one service, which is the RabbitMQ, and we have only one volume under the volume section, which is the RabbitMQ volume that we specified in here, which is going to store some data which will be useful for this service. We have the image specified. We want to get a lightweight one with an affine, so we have this 3.8 measurement coming from this RabbitMQ. We give the container name, which we can be seen, or this can be seen in the Docker Compose file. We have our port for communication port, and then we have our UI port. So this is what we're going to access through 156.72 in and out. So we have our outer UI port. Then, as we specified our credentials, we need to also make sure RabbitMQ runs on our credentials. So we have our default user and our password configured, and we did the same thing in our service container in application layer here. So with that. All right, so that is what we need to make this run. So now that we have this, we can go back to the solution. Then this is found in the presentation. We want to move it back to the root folder. So I'm going to click on open folder in File Explorer. So click on that, and I'm going to go back. So I am in, and now with this, I'm going to cut this. I go back to the order, and that is in order. I'm going to paste it here. So I have made the Docker Compose in the root. That is outside the project. Okay, so now that I have this, I'll just have to run. So how do you run that? You're going to Docker Compose out to make it run. So let's wait and see. Yes, so this is ready. Now, before you click on the enter to run this, you make sure you have your Docker running. So I have mine over here, and that is it. So my Docker is ready. Now let's move on. Okay, so we have RabbitMQ data, and I made it Rabbit data. So I need to make change. You must be careful when typing. Okay, so I need to go back again, and let me drag and drop here. So MQ, and it should be same as this. You see? Now let's try this again. So you can see from here that it is pulling. Now, since I have the image pulled already, it is very fast. You can see it is done. Creating network, volume, and container, which is Rabbit that we specified. Now, if I bring my Docker, you can see from here, I am having this other API. I have the container name as RabbitMQ as we specified in there. It is running on 2 ports. We have 15672, that's for the UI. Then we have the other one for the internal communication, 567 for communication. Then we have the UI port in here. Okay, so we wait for this to get run, and it's going to expose this port, and we can also access it from the local host to this 156.724, the UI. Okay, maybe you can try that. So from this, let me just launch a browser from here, and I'm going to say localhost. So I have it already, and I can see here we are in. So now with this, you can just click on provide a guest, and I'll log in. So we have our MQ working, and now this is ready to accept an event or accept a published event here, and it is also ready to disseminate this to the consumed or subscribed service to consume it. So now that we have this set, we need to go and configure our consumer, which is our product API. So here, this is what we're going to be doing. Let's go to the container. Now let's grab save settings because actually it's the same. Then from the solution, I think this is product. Okay, but I think we need to test this first because when you have a look here, you can see we have this request, takes in the ID, and from our other service, we are publishing it. So we haven't tested that, right? So let's do that. Let's run this and test it and make sure we have the data being published to the RabbitMQ server before we can move on to work with the product API. So our API is ready. Now when you look at, we have it. So we're going to make an order. Maybe we can put a breakpoint so we can test it, look and feel. Now let's put a breakpoint here. We go back. Then let's go and make an order, which is post. We're going to specify the product ID. So test this out. Specify product ID as 1 and add a quantity. And then let's click on send. And a breakpoint must be hit. And of course, it is. Now it is hit. Let's step over. Now we check, we map it. We're going to create that. And after creating it, we're going to save it. After saving it, we're going to publish it. So here, we publish and then we return order created. Now let's go to our RabbitMQ and I'll check. Let's log in again and I'll check it out from our. You can see from here that we have product request, right? So shared library that we created, a product request that we created as a record. We have it in over here, which takes in the property of what ID. Just that here we have one in. Now, if you could see, if you want to go to channels, we have a channel created over here, and now we can go in and subscribe to this. Okay. So now that we see that we've seen we have this stuff running, we can go and work with the product API. Okay, so let's go and do that. So I'm going to minimize this. So before I do that, I'll make sure I'll grab this. Then in the product API, let me make it open. This is a product API. Since we have these two packages already installed, we need not to install this again. We go to the application layer and the service container, and let's also register same over here. And that is all. Okay, so we need to also create consumer. Since this is going to be consuming, we need to create a class to handle that. So I'm going to add a folder to this. And I'm going to say this is consumer. Then what is it going to consume? We know that here we publish the product ID, right? From the other service. So we're going to say product ID consumer. We actually want to give it a name which can be seen, recognized everywhere. So product ID consumer is taking the product ID, and now with this should be public, and also it should inherit from the iConsumer interface. This iConsumer is coming from the MassTransit, and we should pass in the T message. So what is the message? That is the product request. So reason why we should go and add reference to this project. So let's go to new existing project. Yeah. And then we going to navigate to this other, that you can see we have a shared class library. We're going to add this. And then let's go to dependencies and add this to the project. And then we can go ahead and use this product request. Now there's an interface, and you know that we need to implement it. So let's implement that. We have a method that's consume. This which is coming from this, we can get context. Now this context, let's say we want to get the product. So let's inject our product service. So we are using CKRS, and now in that we're calling that over here. But I can also call the CKRS. So if I go to my presentation, my controller, and now controller by product controller, for get product by ID, I am calling the CKRS. So I'm going to copy this, and I'll go back to the product ID consumer, and I'll paste it up here. Now instead of specifying this ID is going to come from this context.message, then dot product ID. You see that? Now I have this. This should be an async. So as soon as I am having the product, what else can I do? We should inject our iSender. iSender is coming from the mediator, so we have that. Now this takes in, when you check this, it takes in an integer, but this is, let's see, this is string. Is that so? When we check our shared library again, let me open that once more from our other API and our shared library for product request. It is integer, right? So that's an ID. I think let's go back. So now that we know this is ID, it's integer type from product. We have an issue here, and now this takes in, I think, string. I'm sure. Okay, so it takes an integer, and this is also context message product ID, which is a form of string. So let's convert this into integer. You can use int.pass. And now we've solved that. Need to close it again. Okay. So now that we have this, we're going to have the product details from this result. What else can we do? We want to return it to the user, right? To the person or the service who requested it, which is the other service. So by doing so, we need to also publish it back. So let's also use this iPubliser endpoint. We say publisher. Then let's publish it. And now here we're going to be using product response, which is specify product ID, name, price, and quantity, which is going to come from this. We can have ID from this. We can have name. Then we can have result dot. Do you have price? We're not having price here, so maybe we can specify any price at all. And then we're going to have the quantity, which is going to come from result dot quantity. So this is what we are also publishing. Okay. Now let's go and register this service. Since you have this consumer created, we need to go and register this consumer. So let's go to the service container and add it here. Now let's go and specify an endpoint where we can pass on to receive our response. So we're going to say that the last part is coming from this configuration. Okay, so now that we are done adding our consumer, now when we run this application, we're going to see that here, order API will make an order, then an event will be published. Since we have the product API also subscribed, it's going to receive that event, process it, and I'll return it. But as soon as it also publishes it to the server, order API is not subscribing. Let's check it out. Then we fix that. So I'm going to put breakpoint in the consumer class. So here we're going to consume it. Now this must get hit as soon as we have the other API running. So we're going to run this and I run the other API as well. Okay. So let's run this project from the product API. Then let me also bring this other API out. Then let's also run this other API. So both are running. So this is our, I think this is the product API, and that is this. Okay, so you want to focus on the other API, and you want to make sure that after we publish this, and the product API will get notified since it has subscribed to the event. So let's go to the post. You're going to make an order. Let's maintain the default values, and let's click on send to make an order. As soon as we do that, we need to make sure this is hit. So we're going to create. Now we should take note. We have also this waiting to be hit. Let me put this here. Then let me also put this here. See that? So we have this. Then we have that, right? Now let's see. So I'm going to click on next. We're going to click on next. Then we map it, we do our stuff, and then this is going to process it. Let's see, save it. Okay, then publish it. So the saving. Yes, it's going to publish this. Now it is publishing. So after it has done, they just return order created. Now here we're watching up for the product API to get hit. Like we see here, we haven't received the hit yet. Have we seen? Okay, so maybe we need to check our connection again. From this, we have our RabbitMQ connection, I guess, specified. We have our queue also specified over here as an endpoint. This is our consumer. Then we have it also specified or registered in here. So maybe we should go and run this RabbitMQ again. So I'm going to navigate to the folder. Then in that, I have it in the order. So that is this one. And I'm going to open terminal from this area. And I run from this terminal. All right, so we wait, and then we're going to log in again. Okay, it's not ready yet. All right, so we are in. Now let's again try to, so this is our order. Let's try to make an order here. So I think the problem is coming from, when you check our solution, this is using Rabbit class library, which shouldn't be that. So this is where the problem is coming from. I think we need to unload this. Let's actually remove it. Let's stop. And then remove it and add the correct one. So let me add that one. And I think it is coming from this demo project that we're working on. Now in the other API, we have the shared library. This is what we need to use. And then we go and add this to the project. Yeah, so that's what we need to use. Now let's go and rebuild solution. And then we're going to start this again and sure this will work out now. Great, so built. Now let's run that. And we're also going to restart this other API. So we have this both API started. So we still have the breakpoints. Let's see from our product consumer. We still have this breakpoint hit. Now let's go and access that. We're going to make an order. So for this, go to post order. And in that, you're going to test this out. We want to maintain the default values. Product ID as 1 and quantity 1. I'll click on this and we have a breakpoint hit. Let's continue on. Then we publish it and I will return it. As soon as we are done, this must hit. All right, and of course it is hit. So you see from here, we have it hit from our product consumer, product API. And then from the context, you can check from the message that it is having product ID. So there's a product ID of 1, and we can use that to fetch it. So we're going to make a fetch over here from the service. We make a CQRS call, and then we have the results from the product details based on the ID. And then we can publish this ID again back to the server. So we see we have it published. Now let's go to the RabbitMQ and check this out. So if I log in, you can see now we have a product ID queue over here, and that is what we have subscribed to. And aside from that, we also made a publish. So you can see from here we have, I think, channels over here. Let's channels that we are working on, 712 and 982. Okay, so the next thing that we have here is how do we consume this in the publisher, that is the other API. You can see from here that the other API is going to publish it to the product API. Now the product API is going to consume it, also process it, and now publish it back to the server again for the other API to consume it and now get the response that it needs. Let's handle that. So we go back to the publisher, which is now the product API. And we see that from this product API, this is the order. From our product API, from the consumer, product ID consumer, as soon as it gets it, it's also going to publish it. And now passing in this response, product response. So let's go to the order and I'll create a response to handle that. We go to solution, then in application, let's add a folder to this. We should add a folder first before we add a class. So add the folder, and I'm going to name it as consumer. So let's stop. Now with this, it's going to inherit from this iConsumer as well, because it's the product detail to iConsumer. Now this consumer is coming from MassTransit. We're specifying the product response, and then we can implement it. So now that we have this, we can go in and let's say product detail. Then we can get it from this context. Dot. We have this message. Like you see from here, we haven't all the product details here, so we can get it like that. Okay, now we're going to put a breakpoint. As we did for the first one in registration, we need to do same. So let's grab that. Maybe we can go to the product API and then grab the service container. So we can, not the, there's the other API. Let's look out for the product. So in the service container, we can grab this from here. Then we paste it. We go in again and grab the last one. Then we also paste it down here. All that we're going to do is to change it to that detail consumer. Now this is coming from the consumer folder. Let's grab this and paste it here. Then for the key, we're going to say this is product detail. And that is all. So now we have the servers acting both publisher and consumer. Let's run this and check them out. So we have a breakpoint in the consumer. So we have it over here. Then we're having the same breakpoint in the other API as well. So both are going to consume, both are going to publish it. Let's see. So this is product, other, active. I think, let's make sure we have both active. So you can see we have them ready. Now we're going to make only one API call, and now it's going to call the other one and so forth. Let's say from our order API, and let's go and make order from the post. Now we have the quantity, that is the product ID. If I click on send, this is from the other API. So product API is going to consume it. And you can see this is the product API. So it is consuming. After consuming, it's going to publish it. And then the other API is going to also consume it to get the feedback. So let's see. Then we see that here, as soon as it's done, let's see, this is continuing. And now from our, you see, from the other API that's also received the event. Now, if I check this, it is taking in a product response, which takes in the name and the quantity and the price. Yeah, so in this way, you have been able to integrate this event in your services. So now you can communicate asynchronously between your services. All right, so I believe you guys enjoyed it. Now, if you are planning on maybe running this in as an image, you know that here we have the RabbitMQ as image. What if in case you want to run all these services as images? How do we do it? Stay tuned. Our next video is going to talk about how we can bundle this app and run them as various images so that the three images can communicate with each other. Talking about the RabbitMQ image, our product image, product API or product service image, and then the other service image. Three images are going to communicate asynchronously.